Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I'll be reviewing the premium Seahawk Mk.50 and Seahawk Mk.100, as they are both identical aircraft, meaning that a single review will cover both vehicles. They are currently 8.0 BR rank 5 premium fighters in the French and German Air Force's tech trees. The Mk.50 currently costs 8,560 Golden Eagles and comes with 15 backups, while the Mk.100 is identical in price whenever it is available for purchase. With that said, in this video, I'll be going over everything that you need to know about these fighters, including their stats, how they play, their strengths and weaknesses. I'll give them some scores in several key areas, and then I'll give my final recommendation, and if I feel that either of them are worth purchasing or not. With that said, if you like this kind of video, please consider subscribing, but without further ado, let's get into the review. Now to start, I'll place both their stat cards here on the side of the screen just so that you can see that they are identical. Important things to note about them are their BR, their overall performance, and their armament. Now for how they play. Again, both the Mk.50 and Mk.100 are identical in terms of performance and armament, apart from some very minor aesthetic differences, such as a small bump in the rear of the fuselage being added for the Mk.100. There aren't any differences between the Mk.50 and Mk.100, gameplay or otherwise. Regardless, the Seahawk is basically the exact average of all fighters at and around this BR, except slightly slower with a slightly better cannon armament. The big difference here is that the premium Seahawks have access to IR-seeking AIM-9B missiles, which, as of current, means that they are the lowest BR planes available with such missiles. You might be wondering if these missiles are any good at such a low BR, and while the missiles themselves are not very good at all, they are still plenty good for destroying the relatively common bombers at this BR, as well as killing unsuspecting strike aircraft and even occasional fighters. Most players at this BR will not assume that a missile will be able to kill them, meaning that even an AIM-9B with all of its mediocre traits will actually be quite successful if used intelligently. If you're not using it against enemies that are too far away, such as beyond 2.5 kilometers or so, or against planes that are actively maneuvering, they're surprisingly deadly. With that said, the Seahawk is more than just its missiles, albeit not much more. It again has middling performance all around and is only a bit of a standout due to its 420mm cannons, which have tons of ammo. Because of this, the Seahawk can be extremely effective if you go after slower enemies or enemies that are distracted. This is especially true when in an up tier, as your performance is typically favorable only to enemies when in a down tier. Thus, you can be a bit more aggressive in said down tiers, and a bit less aggressive in up tiers. Regardless, I'd fly up to a few thousand meters prior to the start of actual fighting, and then boom and zoom against unsuspecting enemies, so long as there are no bombers to destroy, which you can typically destroy at a safe distance with your missiles. Aside from this, I would avoid base bombing, as the loadout on this aircraft, being only 2 1,000-pound bombs and a few rockets, is only powerful enough to destroy about half of a single base, which is not worth the performance reduction that you'd see by lugging those heavy bombs around. Otherwise, you can go after ground targets very easily in RRB with your 20mm cannons and get plenty of score that way. Now for close air support, the Seahawk is extremely average, being able to carry just 2 1,000-pound bombs at max, or up to 4 500-pound bombs, as well as a small selection of mediocre to outright bad RP3 and AP rockets respectively. The Seahawk is just not too capable. Don't get me wrong, it can be effective, but it is not a CAS beast by any means. Thankfully, it can drop each bomb and fire each rocket individually, which helps it a bit in terms of effectiveness, but that's about all that the Seahawk has going for it. Add in its 20mm cannons, which are good but not amazing for CAS, and you have a fairly average aircraft for that role, give or take. It's nothing to complain about, but nothing to write home about either. If using this for CAS, I'd say to bring your 2 1,000-pound bombs and your AIM-9B missiles alongside them so that you can get some kills, then perform fairly effective air cover. I feel like this hybrid type of CAS playstyle will be the best way to succeed in ground battles with the Seahawk, with strafing being done intermittently due to the large amount of ammo that the Seahawk carries. Now with that said, let's get into its strengths and weaknesses, and first for its strengths. This vehicle has the earliest AA missiles in War Thunder with 2 AIM-9Bs. Second, it has 4 good Hispano Mark 5 20mm cannons with plenty of ammo at 200 rounds per cannon. Third, both bombs drop separately from each other, which is beneficial and is not guaranteed on all vehicles at this BR. Fourth, the Seahawk has extremely strong flaps that will work at almost any speed that this vehicle can achieve. And finally, it has premium RP and SL bonuses. Now for its weaknesses. First, relative to similar BR planes, the Seahawk is fairly slow in terms of top speed, acceleration, and rate of climb. Second, it has a somewhat mediocre roll rate. Third, while I can't consider poor missiles to be a weakness at this BR, as you get them before pretty much anyone else, AIM-9Bs are mostly only able to shoot down planes that are not maneuvering and are within give or take 1.5 to 2 kilometers from you. Fourth, the total payload on this vehicle is limited, with insufficient bombs to destroy a base in air RB and limited options and total payload weight for destroying ground vehicles in ground RB. And finally, relative to other fighters, the maneuverability on the Seahawk is middling at best. Not bad, but really not all that great. Now with that said, for dogfighting and ARB, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. While AIM-9Bs are objectively bad relative to almost all other missiles, the planes at this BR are not typically very fast or maneuverable, and a lot of the players at this BR are simply not expecting to be shot at by missiles. Because of these factors, the addition of just 2 AIM-9Bs can make a very noticeable difference in terms of kills at this BR, and will allow you to stay at a relatively safe range from bombers, to shoot them down, or go after smaller aircraft that otherwise don't know that you're there. Regardless, the Seahawk is still slow and is not all too maneuverable itself, which means that you will typically be best either going after equally slow enemy planes, such as those at a lower BR, or you'll want to go after distracted enemies. Thankfully, the 420mm cannon setup on this plane is very powerful and has plenty of ammo, so even if you don't have much luck with your missiles, you still have your reliable and very powerful cannon option as well. For close air support, I give it a 4.75 out of 10. Generic is probably the best way to describe the Seahawk insofar as CAS is concerned, if not maybe a bit mediocre. The loadout options are essentially identical to almost all early jets, with the ability to carry just 2 1,000-pound bombs, 4 500-pound bombs, and or a few weak rockets. It's not an outright bad loadout, but it isn't really good either. The cannons do help pretty substantially as they have plenty of ammo, decent enough armor pen, and are accurate, which makes strafing surprisingly effective. Another small but very important trait is that the Seahawk can drop bombs one at a time rather than all together, which is not always guaranteed at this BR and will allow you to use your limited ordnance more efficiently. In all though, the Seahawk is just okay for CAS and is usable, but not much more than that. Now overall, I give it a 5.75 out of 10. I know I've mentioned this before, but the AIM-9Bs at this low of a BR are a pretty big deal, at least if you use them properly and also if you have a bit of luck. Those alone take the Seahawk from being a 5.5 out of 10 to around a 6.5 out of 10 in terms of air battles, which in turns helps this to be a much better plane overall. Without these missiles, the Seahawk is very average at this BR, with somewhat low speed, middling maneuverability, a mediocre CAS loadout, and a good cannon armament. Again, they are not amazing missiles, and they won't track targets that are maneuvering with any reliability, especially at lower altitudes where the AIM-9Bs maneuver even worse. But they are a surprisingly large net benefit for this plane. Regardless, that's pretty much all that's special about the premium Seahawks. Otherwise, they're more or less the definition of average. Now with that said, do I recommend the purchase of a premium Seahawk? To be honest, I do and I don't. It really depends on the type of player that you are. If you like the idea of getting missiles at as low of a BR as possible, then the premium Seahawks are good for you. They are very fun in that regard and can be surprisingly effective in ARB, not just for its missiles, but also for the good cannon armament and decent enough maneuverability. But if you're not into that, I'd suggest not purchasing a premium Seahawk, at least when not on sale. They're very fun aircraft, but really only for the missiles. Heck, if you like missiles, consider the Sea Vixen or the premium G91R4s, in either the German or Italian tech trees, as those planes are essentially identical to each other, not unlike the Seahawks reviewed in this video. They're just faster, more maneuverable, and have up to 4 AIM-9Bs, while also having the capability to use manually guided ATGMs against ground forces. To me, the premium G91 is a better purchase than the Seahawks, but again, that's just me. But you also have to consider that the premium Seahawk Mk.50 is currently the only premium aircraft for the French at rank 5. So if you need a premium at this BR that can perform air combat very well and CAS decently enough, it'll work, and I'd recommend it in that case. Otherwise, I'd only purchase the premium Seahawks if they're on sale, and if you don't have a better plane to purchase, such as again the premium G91R4. Still, oddly enough, the premium Seahawks do receive my Tankenstein seal of approval, as the seal of approval is more of a reward based on fun, and there are few things more fun than blowing up bombers with missiles, as it is such a rare thing to do in War Thunder. The premium Seahawks are probably the only planes in War Thunder that are able to do that with the regularity that they can, due to their extremely low BR for these missiles. Otherwise, these are fine planes and can serve people well, but they're not amazing really in any one way. They're just fun for their really low BR missiles. Now with that said, thank you all so much for watching. If you don't mind, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel, as they both help me tremendously. Also, let me know what you guys think of the premium Seahawks and of this review in the comments below. Either way, thanks again, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.